All right, so let's make a light box. I've got a new drawing open. We'll start off by create sketch. I'll go to the XY plane. Normally, if I'm importing stuff, I would create a bounding box, saying 250 by 250, so I know the size of my print bed. But I'm making something that I know is going to fit in there, so I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to start out of habit. I'm going to put a point down, and I'm going to hit M to bring up move and point to position, select my point. I want this in the middle, 125, 125. No real reason, just I like it there. I'm going to use this point quite a bit. For example, the very first thing I'm going to draw is actually a center rectangle. And what size do I want to make this thing? Well, one of the things I love about Fusion, even though I have it set for metric, which I'm going to use for the majority of this, I could very easily just type in 8.5 inches, which is the size I want this to be. And now I've got 8.5 inches. If I were to do this correctly and say I want 8.5 inches here, well, I want this to be at a certain ratio. I'm going to mimic the size of a monitor and do a 16 by 9 ratio. Well, I don't know what that is for 8.5 inches, but you don't have to just type numbers into Fusion. You can give it math. So I'm going to tell it 8.5 inches divided by 16 times 9. And now I have a 16 by 9 ratio box to work with. Couple things I want to do on here. I want to fillet the edges. And I want these to be, I think I'm going to go about 1 inch. You can do this with the solids. You can do this with your drawings. Works either way. I like doing it in the drawing so that it has the all of the elements already there. It makes it easier when you're doing offsets and things like that. It's best to do it in the sketch versus on the solid, at least for the rough shape. When you're refining your solid, that's a great time to do it then. I know there's a key for repeat. I don't remember what it is. It'd be nice if I could remember that. But there we go, a nice little round box. Now, this is 215 millimeters, so I know out of my 250, I have a little bit of room to work with. I'm going to do a few offsets on this. My first one, and this is where more math comes in nice and handy, I like to set all of my line widths to 0.42 millimeters in Bambu Studio. I haven't done that quite yet. I need to change. Actually, no, I already have. It's just the sparse infill that's big. So yeah, all of my line widths are 0.42. Some of these are not the default, some are. So I'm going to work with that as my multiple here. And I want these walls to be, I don't know, 5 or 6 thick. Let's go with 5. So I'm going to tell it 0.0. Oh, come on, get back in the box. 0.42 times 5. And now I have a 2.10 millimeter thick wall. Awesome. I need to do that again. And now that I know it's 2.1, I can tell this to do another offset by hitting O. And by the way, I was double clicking. Let me go back. Just click a line, you get one piece. If you have a continuous line and you double click, you get the whole thing. So O for offset, 2.1 times 2. Now I could obviously have just typed 4.2, but I'm trying to do this to show that point. So I have my 2 offsets, and when we extrude this, you'll see why I have those as they are. Got a little bit more geometry I can work with here, which is good stuff. I'm going to cheat just a little bit. I have a handy little reference that I usually start my light boxes in. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to steal, oh, come on, just my keyhole. Just select it, Control C to copy, come back over to this guy, hit paste, shows up down here. Control V for paste. Now I want to tell that okay real quick. I'm going to draw a couple of sacrificial lines. I want one going this way, and I want one going this way. Okay. I'm then going to create a point on that, one in the middle, that's what that little triangle means, and one in the middle there. Okay, we can delete those lines, we don't need them, they were just to orient my points. I'm now going to select my keyhole and hit M for move. I'm going to scroll in here so I can actually click on it, and I'm going to point move that hole right there, or that point, to right there. Then I'm going to grab it again. I'm going to hit M for move, point to point, that same point, this point, except now I'm going to click create a copy, and I'm going to rotate. I have to go, all right, selecting an axis. Yeah, we're not going to rotate it. Now I'm going to select it and hit move again so I can rotate without an axis. Nope. I have to select the right one. And rotate it here. I'm going to use these to cut holes in the body when it's finished. And these are so the box can hang in either a portrait or landscape orientation off of a thumbtack or a nail or screw or whatever. That's all I need in this drawing. Yeah, we're good. So finish that. From here, we could start putting a few things together. Going to, first of all, well, I want to put another feature in here, and I guess I'll make it part of a different sketch. So this one I'm just going to call box. I label and name everything because it helps. So we'll do the basic extrusion on this. First things first, I'm going to grab all of it and extrude up. I'm going to print the base of my light box at 0.28 millimeter height. So for this, I'm going to tell it I want, come on, move over here. I want 0.28, and I want that to be, I don't know, 8 layers thick, a little bit of infill in the middle. I think 8 will work. How thick is that? I'm tired, math is hard. Well, if you want to see what that looks like, see what the actual distance is, you can click inspect, click on the top, flip it over to look at the bottom, click on the bottom, and it tells you, that's hard to see, but 2.24 millimeters. I'm okay with that. I like that height. That works for me. So we'll close out the inspect tool. Now, when you extrude for the first time off of a sketch, it turns your sketch off, so you have to turn it back on. For this box, I'm going to do a few things. I have a fairly standard pattern that I work with. I'm going to kind of work in reverse, and this might be a little bit confusing, but I'll explain why. I'm going to hit E for extrude again, and I'm going to tell it offset. And I'm going to offset up to 38 millimeters, and I'm going to come down by 3. So what this is doing is giving me about 2 inches up, 40 millimeters would be just right above here. It's giving me this little lip that I'm going to work with. Okie dokie. I'm going to grab that same part again, that same plane of the sketch, or sketch face I think it's called. I'm going to extrude that again. And I know what height that was at because I'm doing the math in my head. But let's say I don't know where it is because it ended up somewhere funny. I can click on Start Object, and I can click on that part right there. It's going to start from there, and now I can tell it I want it to come down another 10 millimeters. This is going to try and join them together. The default operation when you have touching bodies is to join. I'm going to tell it to create a new body instead because I want this to be a separate piece. This is going to be a decorative piece. Okie dokie. And I'm going to do it one more time. In this case, I hit E for extrude, and my extent type is going to be to object. And I'm just going to bring it up to here. Now, the default operation, because it's cutting through other material, is to go into a cut, but I don't want that. I want it to join. However, I only want it to join the base. I don't want it to join this piece as well, so I'm going to turn that piece off. If it's not visible, it won't join to it. Click OK. So now I have my base piece, which includes the actual flat piece and the first set of walls. I've got my decorative lip, or my lip, and then I've got my decorative band. So body 1, I'm just going to call that base black. Body 2 is going to be base lip black, and then body 3 is base accent. I'm going to create a group, call it base, drag those parts in there. This is to make life easier when you have more complicated designs. I can turn that group on and off at will now. Now, I already have a lot of material preferences set up. You can define your own materials if you'd like. In my case, I'm going to drag my glow-in-the-dark to this little band right here. I brought up appearances by tapping A, by the way. That's basically what that's going to look like. That's what I want. This is just the standard formula I use on all of my boxes. I love the way it looks. But I want to do some fun stuff with this one. I want to change the way this formula works. So let me turn my base off, and we'll go back into this sketch. I want to put a little alcove down on this corner where I can hide the power cable that will plug into this. And we can do that. I want that to come from this outer wall right here. I want that to give me about an inch worth of clearance. Yeah. So I took a point from that middle, told it 1 inch in at a 45-degree angle, so it put that point right where it needs to be. And now I'm going to have to make 2 lines here. I can just make 1. Do the same thing. I'm going to drag a line all the way down to the bottom here, and you can see it's snapping with that little green X that shows up, and I'm watching my angle for it to kind of stick at 45 because I want this to be a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to go ahead and click to put that one down, and I'm going to OK out of that. I'm going to grab the original line. It was sacrificial, get rid of it. And now I'm going to use my extend tool, and I'm going to extend this line all the way across. So now it is crossing between all of these different lines. So far, this has changed nothing. Our base looks exactly the way it did before. If I finish sketch and look, nothing has changed here. It's still the same old base. But I'm going to use that line to do a couple of things. So let me go back into the sketch. First thing I'm going to do an offset on this, and I need this to be fairly thin. So I'm going to do 0.42 by 3. I don't need it thick. 1.5 millimeters is about where I want that to be. Hit enter, and I need to come in here, and I'm going to bring up my trim tool, which you can also just hit T on your keyboard. Knock those little ends off because I don't need them. That's just clutter on the board. Okay. So with that there, what I'm going to do, and I have to flip over to the underside of this to see it. So let me turn off the grid so we don't have that in the way. I'm going to actually click on bottom so we can make this easier to see. I'm going to highlight these components here, all of those little sketch faces, and we're going to extrude again. And I want this from the outside of the box to be 10 millimeters tall, or whatever would be evenly divisible by 0.28. So real quick, because math is hard, 10 divided by 0.28, about 35 lines, 38, 36 lines. Let's use 36 lines. So I'm going to extrude this 0.28. Wait a second. Our first layer is going to be 0.2, so let's consider that. 0.28 times 35 lines plus 0.2. That's where I want that to be. And is that actually exactly 10? Hang on. I got distracted and clicked when I shouldn't have. It actually came out to exactly 10. That's hilarious. Okay, so yeah, 10 millimeters. I could have just typed 10 millimeters. That would have worked perfectly. However, I didn't want to cut that. That was a mistake. I wanted to make that a new wall and merge it together. What I did here when I incorrectly did that, I said, let me change it. I came down to my timeline. I right-clicked on that extrude option and told it edit feature. This is one of the things I love about Fusion. You can come in and change things. Like I meant to make this a join instead. I can just change that. If I accidentally didn't select all the things I needed, like let's say I had forgotten to actually choose the wall, you can come in and add and remove objects to it. I'm just holding shift to do that. So it makes it real easy to come in and make corrections. And you can do this at any point in your timeline. If you forgot a step 5 steps ago, you can come back in and change that. So now that I know that's 10 millimeters, which is actually really cool, I need to do a few more things. I'm going to take these 3 faces here, and I'm going to extrude again, 10 millimeters, and I'm going to let it cut this time because I want it to cut. I want to take that corner away, cut it out. Then I'm going to select those same 3 faces again, and I'm going to extrude again. And this time I'm going to say I want to start on my object, which is this right here. And I want that to come up. It doesn't have to be super thick, but I don't know, 5 layer height sounds about right. So 0.28 times 5. And I'm going to tell it to join. Oh, I forgot something. So here's a good example. I didn't select everything I wanted to. I'm going to go back to Edit Feature. And I'm going to add in these parts that I forgot about. So now I have that nice seam right here. That's what I wanted earlier. I can't leave well enough alone. I have to be fancy about things. I'm going to add in a chamfer to this. Chamfers and fillets are just little ways of kind of cutting corners. I'm going to select all of the elements that I want to chamfer, including this side, and bring up my chamfer. And it looks like it still has everything selected. No, it does not. Okay. Well, bring up chamfer, and then you can just click on the parts you want. Select all of those. Let's make sure I get this one as well. Okay, so all of the faces where your fingers might go is my point. I want to try and cut those down a little bit. See what 1 looks like. Just 1 millimeter. Not bad. Because it has room to do this, it's going to be 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter. This will be a 45-degree angle. If I come in here and look directly at it, you see this line right here is that the edge from this face right here. And that is a 45-degree angle. A 45-degree angle will print very nicely. If this were any lower than that, like it was a 30-degree angle, it would probably not print so well because that's a pretty steep overhang. You could print it with a much higher angle, but there's no real reason to. I'm just trying to take the sharp edge off of this. I could do a fillet instead of a chamfer, which is a rounded corner. They don't print as nicely because the first layer or 2 of a fillet is going to be a very steep overhang, and they never print well. I prefer chamfers where I can use them. So I've got basically this box is done. I need to come in and cut the face or these keyholes out. So I'll go underneath it, select my keyholes, extrude, and just drag the arrow up. Doesn't really matter because it's going to be a cut, which is what I want. Now I've got my cut done. That's pretty much that at this point. Now I'm going to do something else. A little trick that I've used on a lot of these boxes and I think works very well. I'm going to select this face right here, this object face, and I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to do it negative 0.28 times 2. I'm going to take 2 layers off the top of this because I'm then going to come back and add them right back in, but as a separate body. So 0.28 times 2, this time though as a new body. Why would I do that? Because I've literally, oh, I told it to join. Silly me. Let me fix that. No, I did do it as a new body. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. I missed it. I'm sorry. So this is going to be base reflector. And I'm going to bring my appearances back up to try and represent what this would actually look like. I'm just going to drag my white over to it. I did something wrong with that extrude because that is way bigger than that should be. Let's go see what I did wrong. 0.28, oh, minus 2. It's supposed to be times 2. New body. 0.28 times 2. There we go. That's what I wanted it to look like. The idea here is I have this 2-layer thick object that will be in my list. So when I get this into Bambu Studio, I can specifically tell this to use my silver PLA to create a reflective layer inside the box, or white, or whatever. If you try to do this with the painting tool, you have no control over how deep it goes. And it doesn't need to be a lot. It's the inside of the box. You're not going to see it. I just want it to not be black, basically. So those 2 little layers, all we need, it's fine. I need to put in here, on this face, we need to put some holes because we need to get power into this thing. I could go back and look at my source here to figure out, well, what do I want to put in here? I've got my 7.8 millimeter hole. I've got my 10.2 millimeter hole. I've got the one for, which I think I'm going to use on this one. I've got this guy, which is going to be my choice. Let me turn off the rest of them so I can just select what I need. This is going to be the one I'm using because I want to use this one. This hole and its accompanying body are specifically for an SP110E, a RGB controller. And I made this up a while back, just measuring one after I tore the shell off of it. So what I'm going to do is come back to this one. I'm going to right-click and create sketch. And I now have a sketch plane against that line, which this is going to be important because I'm going to paste in. Oh, no, that came in funny. No. That's not what I want. Well, maybe I can salvage this. Rotate 90. As long as I'm still lined up this way, I am fantastic. Okay. And we will accept the move copy for that. I need to put a point somewhere on this face where this hole will line up. I want to try and center that against this face. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in on this. I'm going to grab a line tool. Let me bring it up. There we go. And I'm going to look for that triangle somewhere in the middle. There's my middle. And if I measure up on this, it's 9 millimeters tall. Remember, we lost 1 millimeter to our chamfer. I think that's okay. So I know my middle is at 5. So I'm just going to put my line there, create point right on top of it, and delete the line. Let's come down here, grab this thing, move point to point, grab this guy, and put him there. Uh-oh, that's not going to work. That doesn't fit. Pooh. Because I need that to be taller. The way I drew this, this is where the circuit board is, and this is where its little mated hole goes. So we need to add a little bit more space on this. Okay, well, since I need to make a change to this, what I can do, I'm going to finish my sketch and get out of that. And come back to my box. Let me name this one real quick before I forget. It's not ESP, it's the, what was it called? SPE110E. SPE110E. Label it just so I know what it is later. Go back to my box. Or actually, I don't even need to go back to my box. I need to find the extrusion I did when I defined how tall this wall was. It was like the 3rd or 4th one, I think. Nope. 4th, 5th one. We're going to edit that feature. I want that to be 15 tall, not 10. And then I need to find that one where I actually drew the wall itself in. Or I'm sorry. One where I... Where's the one where I drew the wall in? Wasn't that one? Is it that one? There we go. So, well, we made it 15, so I'm just going to type 15. If it divides evenly or not, I don't really care. The slicer will figure it out. It can ensure vertical height. It'll make it work. What I do care about, the strips that you put in these things are typically 1 centimeter tall. So I'm going to inspect, and I'm going to look at the height from this line to this line. Ooh, that got a little bit close. Because I'm pretty sure my strips are taller than that. Maybe 15 is too tall. Maybe I have to go a little bit smaller. We will see. The alternative, of course, I could always just put a plug on here and then put the board somewhere further in. So I need to come up with about 1.4 millimeters. I think I can do that. I think I can do that. So let's go back and see if we can. I'm going to edit this one and select all of its elements. I want that. Let me turn the other sketch and the base off for now. I just want these components. There we go. And I'm going to turn this back to visible. And we're going to move. I don't know if this will work. Let's find out. Can I move that point to there, to that line? Will that work? Doesn't seem like it. Damn. Okay. Well, we can just translate instead. So translate it up. Of course, it's really hard to gauge where that actually is. Well, that's not working. So we can use move to position. We remember my Z on this, we had done 0.28 by 8, I think it was. So let's see if that looks like it lines up. Looks like it lines up to me. I think we're good on that. Although now I'm questioning if I was supposed to place that on the inside or the outside. I think it had to go on the inside. Hold, please. Okay, I went back and double checked. I looked at another drawing where I'd last used this. I haven't used it in a while, and I remember what I did. It's actually, this is supposed to represent a wall right here. That's what this little nugget is right here. So I need to move it forward a little bit. Let's go ahead and select all of that again. And move. We'll just translate it. Bring that forward. Right about there should be good. So this just butts right up against it, and then that hole opens up for the thing to get through. And yeah, that's close enough. I'm fine with that. Okie dokie. So the purpose of this, what this thing does for me, I am going to take these two little pegs right here and extrude them up, I don't know, 4. Why are you going down? Orientation must be wrong on this. I want those to come up by about 4. I actually don't want those to be a part of the silver. I'm fine with those being black, so we'll make those new bodies. And add those to it as well. As that just catches it, those hold it. That should be okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. And again, to be fancy, just to make it easier to actually put these things in, I'm going to select these two faces, and this time I'm going to do a fillet. 0.75. Yeah, 0.75. Just round those off. So when those print, it just won't be a flat edge. It'll make it easier to slot this thing on top of. Actually, I'm going to change what I was doing there. I am going to turn off the reflector layer. And I'm going to go back to my extrude. And I'm going to put an offset on here just to bring that down. So it's actually touching this base layer. And bring it back up just a tiny bit more. That is going the wrong way. Oops. Why is that going the wrong way? That should go that way. Did it decide it wants to go the correct direction now? Okay. Whatever, Fusion. Although I wanted those to join. Not new body. And they're not joining. Okay, you know what? We'll just delete that altogether. It's going to warn me because the fillet doesn't work, so I removed it. Let's do that all over again, but this time without the reflective layer. So I'm going to grab these four parts. I'm going to start at object and go up 4. For whatever reason, it's still inverted, probably when I flipped it over. Or is it just being silly? There we go. So now I've got a little peg to put these on. I'm going to put some tape underneath it anyways. This is just to help it. Go back in, we'll do those fillets. 0.75 was what we used before. That's good. And let's grab that hole and cut it out. So now I have a spot that when I go to paint or when I go to print this, it's just going to skip not putting down the silver right there. So this will be, my black is PLA plus, my silver is regular PLA. Not that it matters for such a tiny part, but that will help make it a tiny bit stronger, having PLA on PLA, or PLA plus on PLA plus. I'll be able to take my little control module, stick it in here. And again, the whole reason why I'm doing this, that little hole, I can now put a power plug in that. And if I look at it, if I inspect from the top of that hole to this line right here, about 3.5 millimeters, that should be more than enough for the jacket around any kind of socket. So yeah, 15 millimeters was definitely a much better choice here. That should work fine. I'm okay with that. And it's thin too, which is necessary because I have other things I would put in here, like I have a little USB-C breakout that I would put in. That needs to have a very thin depth. The USB-C female end that's attached to the circuit board only sticks out by a little bit. So this wall being thinner is fine. It's going to have plenty of strength and support from the rest of this. I don't have any artwork to put on the face, which we need to make next. So I'm going to turn my base off, turn my base or my box sketch back on. And at this point, I'm debating if I want to create a new sketch for the face or not. You generally don't have to, but I think it might make it easier because then you don't have extra elements cluttering it up. So I'm going to just select the parts I want, which are these 3 walls. I'm going to hit Control-C, new sketch, paste. Oh, I wanted to copy over the center point as well. So Control-C, Control-V, okie dokie. Now if I turn off box, now I just have this to work on for my face. Not face 3, just face. Reason why I'm doing this is so that if you're going to bring in design elements, whatever the face of your light is supposed to be, you have artwork you want to put in, whatever, this would be where you import it and line it up and make it fit. However, I'm going to do at least 1 or 2 things on here. We'll just do something for an example. I'm going to do another offset, this one being a negative 2.4, because we were doing, or 2.1. No, I want this one bigger. I want this one to be 2.4. This one's going to be decorative. So we're getting into things that are no longer strictly functional. We put together our body, and we need to add a face to it. So remember we came up to 38 millimeters here? Well, my box is going to be 40 millimeters tall. I just like that height. That's what I work with. And I'm leaving a 2 millimeter space for the face of it. So turn my base back off. I'm going to grab just this outside ring, and I'm going to extrude. I'm going to give it an offset of 40 and -2. I don't know why. I like to work down from the top. So we'll create that one. Turn my face sketch back on and grab the next one, the next ring in. This one, same thing, offset of 40, but -5 this time. This will give me a little lip that can attach to the base, and I'm going to let that join. Because if you don't join these, if you leave these as separate objects, when you go to slice it, you'll get additional outer walls between them because it will see the two objects independently and treat them as two different objects with their own outer walls connecting to each other. By joining them, if they have any kind of hollow space inside of them where it would normally be infill, it will actually create infill. That's actually one of the things you commonly get when you repair a model. It fixes things like that where you have entirely encased outer walls touching entirely encased outer walls. It sees that as a mesh error sometimes. I'm going to grab the next one in, and this is where we start doing decorative silly stuff. I'm going to do this as 40, and this time minus 0.6. This will be a new body. Okay, and we'll grab the next one in. Same exact thing, 40 minus 0.6 as new body. The face on here, I generally throw my white. I like to have a little white ring that kind of wraps around the face. So if I turn off my sketch, just have this little box like this, the little face for it. Again, let's keep things fancy. I'm going to bring up my chamfer tool, take the entire outside perimeter, knock 1 millimeter off of it. No reason why not. It prints clean, it takes a sharp edge off of it, and gives just a little bit something more to make it special and different. Cool. So we've got a nice looking little box here. If I turn the base back on, it's about what it looks like. Okay. But I don't want this face to fall off. I don't want it to have to require screws or glue or anything to be held on. For something with such a basic shape, just a rectangle like this, it's not going to have very much friction holding it together. If you have something with crazy lines and edges and stuff like that, you'll get a good friction fit out of it. But these Bambu printers are very dimensionally accurate when they print, and you're going to have some fun with this. It will fall off. And I don't want to put glue on that, because what if the light strips with their super cheap adhesive strips don't stay in place? Well, now I have to tear it apart to get into it to try and fix the light strip, and if I glued it in, I'm going to ruin the box. So we're going to put some little tabs on this. First, a little bit of organization. Let's create a new group, call it face. I was not where I need to be. Come on. Face. Let's identify our parts. We've got face, lip, black. We've got face accent. And we've got just face. Art. We'll call it face art. There's nothing there, but whatever. Face art. This piece right here would usually be where you put all of your design stuff. Whatever image, text, logo, whatever thing you want to put on there. Not doing that here because time constraints. When I print this, I'll put something on it. I don't know what yet. I am going to start by turning off my base. And I need 2 more sketches. I need to come into one side, and I'm going to choose the underside of this lip and create sketch. I'm going to come back over so I can see it. And I'm going to cheat again. I'm going to find my center point with a line right about there. And if I measure this, it's going to be 3 because that's how much I gave it. So what I'm going to do is come down and draw myself a 2 millimeter line. Well, actually, I'm going to draw a 1 millimeter line because that's where my center is, and I'm doing a center rectangle. So there's my little line, create point, create point. Okay. And I'm going to delete the line because it's just clutter. I'm now going to tell it, give me a center rectangle that is 2 millimeters tall by 20 wide. Okay. And that's all I need in this sketch, so finish that. What I'm going to do with this, I'm going to take it and extrude out 1 millimeter. Except I didn't mean to do that because now I can't see my sketch. I can't get to it because I have something in the way. So we'll undo that. And I'm going to do the opposite end first. Tell it from object, this side, the opposite side, and -1 to bring out a little peg there. And now we can come back over to the original side and we can extend it 1 from here. call that nub and Y. And let's go do nub and X. I'm going to come over to the top of the thing, which I guess this would be Y. Doesn't matter. They just need to be labeled differently. Same exact procedure. I'm going to find the middle and draw a, which you may be thinking, well, why are you drawing the line? Why don't you just put a point down? The point, maybe it'll snap. Yeah, as soon as I find the center, it's going to try and use the center instead of snapping to the grid, so I won't be able to get it exactly where I want it. If I'm doing something like over here or over here where it's not that middle point, yeah, it's going to try and give me more control. I don't know why, whatever. To get it where I want it, it's easier to just draw the line. And I could put the point down and then move it, I guess, but whatever, it's easy enough just to draw a line. Rectangle, center rectangle, 2 by 20. Finish sketch. That's nub and X. Not make the same mistake we did before. I'm going to hit E for extrude. I'm going to come over to the other side here. From object, and because we're going backwards, -1, okay. Come back over to our front side, turn the sketch back on so we can see it. Extrude 1. So I've got these little pegs. Well, they're not going to work great for what we want to do, so let's add some geometry to it. Chamfer tool, and I'm going to click the face of the thing, not the edges. I'm going to go around and get all 4 of these faces. All 4. And we'll bring them in by 1. Because they're 1 millimeter thick, if I tilt the chamfer by 1, we have now created a nice little pyramid-looking shape. I don't know what you want to call that, but that will feed nice and easy when it goes into the base of it. I'm going to do one more step on that just to ensure it feeds nice and easy. Now I'm going to bring up my fillet tool, and I'm going to select the front little edge of these, just to make sure it feeds nice and easy. And I'm going to take like 0.5 off of that. Not very much. That's just enough so we have a little rounded edge on it. It still sticks out by a pretty good bit. Plenty enough to actually hold on if I force my... There we go. It still pokes out a pretty good bit. How tall is that? You're not going to measure from the apex, though. You're going to measure from, yeah, the bottom. But, yeah. It sticks out far enough. So that completes the lid, the face of the thing. We've got the little retention pegs on it. We would have art here, so that's fun. Let's go ahead and turn the face off and turn the base back on, because now we need to put the receiving ends into this. Turn my 2 little nubbin sketches back on. Exact same procedure in reverse. I'm going to extend by 1, and that's going to be a cut operation because this is where it's going to mate into. Okay. Extend or extrude again from object, this object -1. We get that mated hole. This one, take 1 out. This one, rotate around to object, that object -1. We need to refine the shape of this because those are just simply rectangles cut out. That would not do great for holding it in. It would have a rattle. It would kind of move around up and down. So I need to be able to click on a line on the inside of there, which is really hard to do because when I go to an angle where I can see it, I've got my body in the way. So I can just turn off everything that I don't need so I can see specifically what I do need. That's part of why I label these things. So I'm going to take that corner and that corner and that corner and that corner, and we're going to do another chamfer. 1, because that's 2 millimeters tall, and that will create what I think is a really nice shape to receive the actual pegs themselves. So, okie dokie. If I turn all my design parts back on and take a look at it, I now have a decently sized box that has a little recessed alcove for a power cable to go in, which if I look at it this way, that power cord comes in. Hopefully this is enough room for it to have enough bend radius to come out so it can kind of hang down, or if I wanted to stand this upright on a desktop, it could tuck out of the way without poking out this side or poking out this side or coming directly out the back or whatever. I can hang it in either orientation. That cable will adjust either way. Whatever face I print for this can be rotated around, so it doesn't have to be printed the correct way, I suppose. I'm pretty happy with that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the face off so I can only see my base elements. And I'm going to file... Well, first of all, I need to save this thing because I haven't saved it yet. This is GeneriBox. GeneriBox. There we go. That's what I want to call it. You have to save it before you can export certain formats. So I'm going to export GeneriBox v0, and I want to call this is going to be a step file. And we'll see the differences between these things. I had been playing with this earlier, and I swear I had faster printing with a step than I did with a 3MF, which was crazy, but whatever. So yeah, step box export. And just while I'm at it, I'm going to export my 3MF as well. And I also screwed up. I meant to call this base, and I didn't do that. If I come back over here, V1 base. Yeah, I meant to give it that name, sorry. And we'll turn the base off. We'll turn the face back on. We need to put something on this to make it not so boring. Let's turn my face art back on, and we will edit sketch. And let's throw some text on it, I guess. Just something real quick. Text. And I'll just grab the corners so I can center it. Old handle that or a domain name that I own. And do I have armor piercing in here? I don't have my font. Ooh. Oh, is it bottom maybe? Nope. I was hoping I had a certain font in here and I don't, so let's do a different one. We'll use Carlson Antique. Anyone who's a fan of 40K knows what I'm doing right now, or might be familiar with what I'm doing right now. We'll center that and we'll make it big. Not that big. How about that big? Nope, still too big. That big? Still too big. That big. There we go. Perfect. I like it. So now I've got something to work with. Text is a funny thing in Fusion. There's an option where you can tell it to explode text, which turns it into actual geometry. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to leave it like it is. I'm going to export that and cut a hole. Then I'm going to export it, or I'm sorry, export it. I'm going to extrude it. And I'm going to offset 40 minus 0.6. As new body. New body, please. So now I have all these body. These are my letters. Each one has its own individual part. You can see as I scroll through them, it selects them. I'm going to select all of them and just click on one and say letters white. It renames all of them for me, which is handy. I can drag them up here to my face, hit A, select them and drag my white over, and boom, I've got a fethet. Cool. So let's go ahead and export this now. File, export, and this is GeneriBox 1, face. Fethet. Yeah, that'll work. So, Bambu Studio. I now have a step file and I've got 3MF files. I like 3MF files for a lot of reasons. They are generic formats. You can open them in a number of different things. There are international standards used for these where it defines all the way these things work, which is great. Bambu Studio, Orca, also save their project files as 3MF, but they put custom attributes in them. So a generic 3MF is not the same as a Bambu 3MF. If I come in here and let me just throw this in here, I'm not going to do anything special with it yet. Contains objects. Yes, I want to do this. I'm just going to save as real quick, and we'll call this just GeneriBox v1. I'm going to take the base out of it just so it has a different file name. Show you what I'm talking about. I've got my GeneriBox base geometry file from Fusion. That works. If I try and open this one, can't do that. It's because it's now a custom Bambu file. Notice also the file size went down tremendously. It's compressed. I am not entirely positive. This is something I need to do a little bit more digging on. This one was that my step or my 3MF? That was my 3MF. If I drag my step file in here, you might be able to tell the difference. Like on this curve, see how it's kind of prismatic, how it's broken up? Come over to my step. It's a lot finer. There's a difference in how these files look. How a 3MF, which is basically just STLs inside of a zip file. That's really all a 3MF is. It's a fancy zip file. 3MF by default contains STL meshes, which are not always as high polygon count as, per se, a step file. Now, pros and cons of this, all the names I put in to Fusion for my base, if I come back over here and look, I had base black, blip, accent, reflector. The 3MF preserves that. That's pretty cool. I don't get that with the step file. Now, the step file, however, I can break into parts. Not objects, but parts. You want to use parts because it maintains the geometry, like the Z distance and everything. If I go back to that and break it into objects, they all just fall to the floor, which is no good. So I can break it into parts, but I don't have names or anything. Now, there's only 4 objects in this part, or 4 parts in this object, so that's fine. But if I had something with like 100 pieces in it, that would really suck. I can come in here and just by clicking on it, I can find, here's where my accent piece is. I want that to be my glow in the dark. And then 4 is going to be my silver piece. So I've got my 3MF here. It's got all the little bits and pieces in it. That I want it to have. Looks pretty okay. I come back over to this one that was my 3MF import, and we're going to do the experiment while we're here. Let me change all this to black, and then I can very easily know that my accent needs to be that, and my reflector needs to be that. So these are now identical in every way. Same exact file, same exact settings, nothing has been changed. The process I'm using on this, I've got a specific one I've set up for bases. This is going to be all global attributes, so nothing is unique between the two. I do want to do one more thing. I want to rotate these 45 degrees because walls always print better when they are not planar to your XY axis. Less vertical fine artifacts when you do this. So yeah, is that centered? Let me center it and center it. Oh, well, crud, didn't mean to do that. Center, please, back to where you were. Okay, so I got my 3MF over here. I've got my step file over here. They are in the same orientation. Everything's the same. So let me slice all of these real quick. And here's what I'm curious about. This one, the 3MF, says it'll take 2 hours, 31 minutes. The step file takes 2 hours and 13 minutes. It's the exact same file, exported at the exact same time with the exact same settings. And it's 20 minutes faster to print the step file than it is to print the 3MF. I think if I come in and look at the line view, what we're going to see, I've got outer wall, inner wall, and 2 inner walls. Now, if I go back over to the 3MF and look at it, I bet you we have some gap infill or something. Nope, it's the same. I don't know why it's faster. I don't know why. That's confusing. Something's up. It's got to be something with the way it processes the geometry and figures out what to draw. I can't explain that.
Except I can explain it. Looking at the times in here, you'll actually see that the less precise geometry of the 3MF is causing a lot more travel time. It's having to move around to try and print walls because they're not perfectly straight in those curves. Now, this will be different from model to model, but generically speaking, I think it's safe to say that step files will simply print better and faster.
So yeah, the step file prints, what is that? 2 hours, it's 150 minutes total, 20 of 150. That's a pretty significant savings. That's what, 18, 17% faster just by using a different file. I like it. So yeah, I don't want to print the 3MF. So I'm going to go back to prepare, and I'm going to take my 3MF file, and we're just going to delete you because I don't want you no more. You're slow. Goodbye. We're going to keep the step file. A couple things to look at on this. If I go into preview and scroll down, if I did all of my presets right, this should look correct. First layer, second, third. Now we should get an infill. It should be 2 or 3 layers of infill. It's not quite the way I want that to look. I want that to be more perpendicular. My infill line's going this way directly across the print. I want this bridging layer, which is my very first top surface layer, to be as perpendicular to that as possible. Let's see here. I can change my infill orientation, but I really don't want to. I don't think bridge direction affects the top surface, and I don't think I have the ability to change the top surface layer. I really wish this top surface was going to print across this way. Usually it chooses the shortest distance to do that. I don't know why it decided to do this way. It's pretty close to perpendicular though. That's like 15 degrees off, 10 degrees off. You know what? That'll be okay. That'll be okay. I'm not going to worry too much, but it'll be a little bit rough. It's not going to print super smooth, but it doesn't need to be. If I wanted this surface to be smooth, I would add another layer to it. I would make it perfectly perpendicular, but that's going to be okay. That should be a layer of black, and it is. Then I get my first silver, my second silver, and it didn't draw those where I wanted them, but that's okay. That's all right. These really are just kind of basic guides, so I'm not too worried about these not connecting all the way through. Those go up, we get our hole, get our overhang. Okay, so we need to paint on a little bit of support real quick, and we'll be done with this part. I'm going to get to center, please. Get to the view I want, and we're going to paint on with the fill bucket, overhangs only, 30-degree overhang. And I'm going to click here and click here, the 2 parts I care about. And slice. And if I change my view to come back over this way, because I've got my tree set up a little bit funky already, change to line view. Excellent. It did exactly what I wanted. If I come down to that first interface layer, I've got a nice solid interface. It skips just a tiny bit. And then if I look at this from, where is it? Sorry, I always forget which key shows me the top of the print. 1. Control 1, by the way. Control 1 brings it up. So I'm looking straight down on it. A little bit here that may not be the best because that's going to be unsupported, but that's a very short bridge between the supports. After that layer goes down, it'll start printing more normally. Yeah, that'll be fine. I'm not worried about that. That will print perfectly fine and normal. I'm happy with that. Let me make a new window here. And this is one thing I wish they would change. Maybe they change it in 1.8 or 1.9 or who knows what. They'll do this eventually. You can't have different global settings per plate. I mean, they're global settings. That makes sense. But I wish there were more things that are global options that were either part of the object options or could be plate specific. That would be nice. Until then, I have a separate one for face. This one is going to print at 0.2. It's going to use a smaller first layer. It's using Arachne with a rather aggressive transition angle. Only one wall, top and bottom, and there's a whole bunch of different things in here that we use for this. Because I care about the face, the bottom is what I'm going to look at. I have changed this top and bottom surface patterns. So monotonic line has become the bottom pattern, and monotonic has become the top surface. Let you get a little bit more in there. Yeah, so let's go grab the face, or fethet. Same question, multiple objects, yes, that's fine. This one, don't really have to rotate it. It'll print fine either way. The walls are very small on this. I'm not that worried about it. What I do need to do, however, is lay it on its face, flip it upside down. And I need to, let's grab art lip. Those two need to be black. And we'll move that out of the way, the prime tower. So yeah, that part's basically, that's it, that's done. There's nothing to change or set up on this. Yeah, so with that, I will fire these off and jump into the next stage. Alright, so remember when I said I was a little bit worried about not sticking to the silk? Well, yeah. Fortunately, they're just there for alignment anyways, and not even necessary because I put tape on the back of the SP110E. A little bit there. These are really, again, just alignment. I'll line it up. Put those in the back. And then make sure it lines up in the front and squish it down. It's part of what's nice about using this. It requires no solder. That's it. It's done. Okay, so stuck that in. That's not going to go anywhere. That tape will hold it in there just fine. For the strip, I personally am fond of cob LEDs. I love the way these work. They don't cast shadows. They light things up nice and evenly. They're good and bright. They fit very nicely in here. However, I want this one to be a little bit more special. That's why I put the SP110E in here. A normal WS A normal WS2812B LED is usually 10 millimeters thick. It would probably not fit in that little alcove. I've picked up some of these Altuves that are narrow. Alcove, is that how they say it? Alcove, yeah. They're only 5 millimeters. They'll fit really nicely. What I need to do on this, I want to take off this extra wire lead that they give me because I don't need it. Honestly, I'll just save those wires for the next project. I can use them for one that requires soldering. So, just cut off the heat shrink. They put these leads on here because since these are 5 volt, if you're going to have multiples daisy chained together, you can have one controller run as many as you want. You just have to introduce additional power to the chain. So Alcove is nice. They give you these little pigtails to add power along the way as you go. But I don't need that, so I'm just going to peel that off, get rid of it. And I'm going to snip off the ends of the wire that I don't need. No reason to get the soldering iron out, just to take these 2 little pieces off. Make a soldering project where you don't need one. Okay, so with this particular kit, I've got a 3-pin to 4-pin adapter, which is purely a physical adapter. I could cut this and change it around if I really wanted to, but why bother? So stick that together, and it's just a matter of running the lights around. Peel back the adhesive. And I don't know if you can see that. Wedge something under here. So what I'm trying to do is get this started and lining it up with the top of that color change. This is part of why I like putting in this little translucent strip. It gives me an alignment guide when it comes time to put lights in. Now, what you didn't see was off camera, I already ran an alcohol swab around the inside of this so that it won't come loose. It's one of my biggest fears with these light boxes is that the adhesive backing on these strips, like this one says it's 3M, and it probably is. I have used plenty of them where they say 3M and there's no way it's 3M. It's absolutely knockoff, cheap stuff, whatever. And you get these off AliExpress or wherever. What do you expect? But cleaning the inside of the print before you go to adhere these will ensure that they actually stick well and they stay stuck. Because what might go on immediately and seem like it worked will then turn around and fall off a week later. And it looks like I need to cut right there. Alright, so what I ended up doing, I put a little bit of electrical tape just to cover up that contact and push it down, keep it out of the way. I put a piece of harness tape, I love harness tape, on the wire just to hold it down. And that's it. No soldering, just a little snipping and taping it on. So let's find out if it works. Just like that. And then take whatever faceplate we're going to use. Perfect.
The gray that you're seeing is an anti-slip rug tape. It works great to stop these from scratching walls. And I already had a fethet, so instead I made a Wumps cut.
Okay, so I have my sign. It's been hanging out in vertical orientation, and it's time to change the plate. I'm just going to get my thumbnail in between here to pull up one of those little tabs, run a fingernail around, put in a different one. And now I have a horizontal sign.